Alright, what is up everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today we're talking about the Boston Celtics. They have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA recently, and it looks like they're starting to figure things out, and they may actually be a team better than we expected. We're going to talk all about them here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views and the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. Links to my Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So we're talking about the Boston Celtics today. They have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA recently, but it didn't always be like that. You know, they started the year off 0-3. There was a lot of questions, concerns talking about the Celtics. Then they started to win some games. They're putting things together. Eventually, they hit a point a couple weeks ago where they lost to the Brooklyn Nets at home in an NBA Cup game by 8 points, and they were 8-8 on the season. And it felt like after that point, things have taken a turn on their season. You know, I felt like after that point, I don't know what was said, I don't know what was done, but from that point on, it feels like now they're starting to figure out how to play. They're putting things together, and now they look like a genuinely good team. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. They're currently on a 5-game win streak, and overall they've jumped up to 15-9. They now have the third best record in the Eastern Conference right now, and they're looking really good. They got a couple great wins. You know, these last couple games. You know, look at this wins they've had over the streak. They beat the Magic by 9, ended the Pistons 14-game win streak at home by 3. Beat the Cavs, beat the Knicks, dominated the Wizards by 45 points, then beat the Lakers, and yesterday, because early game, they beat the Raptors in Toronto by 8. And even the only losses against Minnesota, but that was a really good game where it took, Minnesota having hit, some big shots late. I think that was Anthony Edwards hit like a crazy 3-pointer late. Like it took heroics for Minnesota to win that game. So these last 8 games, they've looked very, very good. They have the second best record over this stretch. OKC's the only team that has been better than them record wise over this stretch. And yeah, looking at some of these numbers and what they've been doing, it's been really good. These next numbers I'm about to say are in these 8 games. Since November 23rd, since their first win in the streak. They have the best offensive rating in the league over this stretch. Defense is 23rd, but they have the third best net rating. Their offense has really been coming together. They're second in points per game. They're averaging over 125 points per game, while shooting the ball super efficiently too. They're third in field goal percentage. They're shooting over 51% from the field. They're first in 3-pointers made. Third in field goal percentage from 3. They're shooting over 41.5% from 3 over this stretch, while being second in turnovers. They're overall in the season they are a very low turnover team. They're averaging less than 12 turnovers per game in this stretch. They're eighth in steals and third in blocks too. They're eighth in points off turnovers, 10th in second chance points, fifth in fast break points. So offensively, they've just been shooting the ball super efficiently, and they don't turn the ball over. So they're getting up a lot of shots. Defensively, the numbers don't look insane, but there's been a couple things that they've been doing well. They're seventh in opponent field goals made, eighth in opponent field goal percentage, so they're not giving up a bunch of shots. Teams aren't making a bunch of shots against them. They're second in opponent defensive rebounds per game, so they're not giving up a bunch of defensive boards. 11th in opponent assists, 12th in opponent points. They're averaging 100. They're only giving up 114 points per game over the stretch. So they're scoring 125, giving up 114. So that's a pretty good differential. They're seventh in opponent points off turnovers, seventh in opponent fast break points, fourth in opponent points in the paint. So they're not giving up a bunch of points in the paint either. So they're guarding the paint, not turning the ball over, not giving up defensive rebounds, and they're shooting the ball really well. That's a pretty good recipe to win games, And honestly, one thing that also has been really good to them is the clutch. Before this stretch of games, they were 3-6 in clutch games, under 500. Over this stretch, they're 4-1 in their clutch games. Look at their clutch games. Again, they beat Detroit, they beat Cleveland, they beat the Raptors, they beat the Knicks. Like these clutch games have been very, very important. The only loss in this stretch is a clutch game, and over these last couple clutch games, they're first in field goal percentage and second in 3-point percentage. So they're just making a bunch of shots in the clutch and able to win that way. Look at the overall season and how they play and what things they're good at. ISO, there's been a lot more ISO possessions, especially without Jason Tatum. It's been Jaylen Brown a lot of being the number one guy. They're seventh in ISO possessions. They're averaging 0.98 points per possession, which is 10 points per game, 75.9 percentile. So pretty good ISO. Pick and roll ball handler. They're 11th in possessions. They're averaging 18.5 points per game, 0.95 points per possession, 89.7 percentile, one of the best in the league. So pick and roll ball handlers, when they are doing their thing, they're one of the best in the league at that. They don't get a lot of spot up possessions. They're 26 in spot up possessions, but when they do get them, they make them. 1.16 point per possessions, 28 points per game, which is 93.1 percentile. I think that's top three in the league in spot up percentile. So they don't get a bunch of spot up shots up, but when they do get them, they make them happen. They're 20th in drives. They don't get to the basket a whole lot, but they make them count. They're first in field percent. They're shooting over 55% from the field on drives. So they don't get a lot of them, but when they do drive to the basket, they're making them. They're 10th in catch and shoot points per game. They average almost 33 catch and shoot points per game. They're first in field goal percentage and first in 3 point percentage on catch and shoot shots. They're shooting 43% from the field and almost 44.5% from three on catch and shoot. So catch and shoot wise, they're getting the opportunity. They're making them. You know, they're as a team they are amazing catch and shoot wise. They're first in pull up shooting. They're averaging over 35.5 points per game on pull up shots, being second in field goal attempts, but they're ninth in field goal percentage on those. They're shooting 43% on pull-up shots. So they get a lot of pull-up shots, and they're making them. They're also first in three-point attempts on pull-ups. They're averaging almost 18 pull-up three-point attempts per game while being top 10 in three-point percentage. So they're getting a lot of pull-up shots, but they're making them at a good rate. On field goals less than 10 feet, they're 30th. Again, they don't drive to the basket a lot, but when they do get them, they're making them. They're shooting almost 80% on field goals less than 10 feet. So when they get into that basket, into that paint, they get him. And they're first in field goal attempts from 25 to 26 feet. I'm sorry, 25 to 29 feet. So basically 3 point range. They're shooting 40% on those shots. And they're also first in screen assists. So how they score is basically catch and shoot, pull ups, pick and roll ball handler, spot ups, ISOs, like all a majority of ways they score offensively. They're shooting the ball really efficiently, and they really found their off. I feel like early in the year they were getting these type of looks, they just weren't making them, and now they're starting to go in and starting to make them. And a lot of guys on this team are finding their confidence. You got to give all your credit to Jaylen Brown, flowers to Jaylen Brown. He has taken the number one role, and it's a very interesting thing to see. Like, how is Jaylen Brown going to look now? This is the first time he's ever been like a number one, and over this 7 game stretch, he's averaging 33, 7, and 7 on 48, 40, 80 shooting splits, has a tie for the second highest plus minus in this stretch. He's doing his thing, man. He's putting up 30, 40 point games. He's got triple double in this stretch. He's defending. Like, he's doing so many different things. It looks like a genuine, like, all NBA like player right now. Like, he's doing his thing. He's having a career season. He's scoring. He's just been the guy in Boston. He's also been very vocal. He has a bunch of quotes talking about, hey, we got to come to play, all that stuff. Like, he has really taken this role and is dominating in that. So you got to give a lot of your credit and respect to Jaylen Brown, where a lot of people maybe thought, I don't know how he's going to look as a number one. Maybe he could put up numbers, but are they actually going to win? Well, he's putting up the numbers and they're winning. So what can you say, really? So you got to give credit to Jaylen Brown. Derek White has also found a shot. Derek White has been, I guess, somewhat of a disappointment over this season, because everyone expected Derek White to come out and be like an all-star type player, and he just hasn't really been shooting the ball efficiently, and definitely looks like he has a lot too much on his plate. But over this stretch, he's kind of found it. He's averaging 22.5 points per game, while shooting 41% from three on 10 3-point attempts per game. He's had a couple big. I think it's Washington, he had 30. Yesterday against Toronto, he had a really, really good game. Like, he's starting to find his shot a little bit, and you can still tell. I mean, it's a lot on his plate. He's never been this featured in an offense before. He's usually the fourth guy that's like trying to fill in all the gaps. Now he's like the number two and has the ball in his hands and is like the lead guy on the perimeter besides Jaylen Brown. And so obviously it's a lot on his plate, and that's not really what his role should be, but it kind of is what it has to be right now. But over the last couple games, he's finding his shot. So that's really good. Payne Pritchard is doing his thing as a starting point guard, to give you 18 points per game over this stretch. And then you got some of the others, like Anthony Simons is shooting 40% from three with 12 points per game coming off the bench, and has a 9.1 plus minus, which is top 5 on the team over these games. So he's been finding a shot. Neemias Queta is showing that he's a starting center, but potentially in this league. He's averaging 12 points, almost 8 rebounds, and a block per game on 77% shooting from the field in this stretch. It feels like he's just a instant bucket when he gets inside. He takes his shots. He knows what shots to take, what shots not to take. He rebounds well. He's averaging over 3 offensive rebounds per game over this 7 games, so he's doing his thing. Jordan Walsh has also really emerged for this team. He's a guy that's been on the end of the bench for the past 2 years. Was a second-round pick out of Arkansas, has some, potential, being a great defender, has really good length and all that stuff. And overall, he's been putting things together. Now he's a starter. Over this 7 game stretch, he's giving you 10 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 steals. He's shooting 66% from the field, 50% from three, 2 offensive rebounds per game, a 4.6 plus minus. Like, he has a double double. He just plays really hard, man. He plays well hard. He plays with intensity on both sides of the ball. He guards some of the best perimeter players on one end, and on the other end, he just gets it where he fits in. He doesn't try to do too much. He just, when he gets his open shots, he knocks them down. He drives to the basket. Putbacks. Like he's been just everywhere. And he's really becoming like a rotational piece for this team. Sam Hauser shooting 44% from three over the stretch. Josh Minot is like a rotational guy and is showing that he can be something. Hugo Gonzalez, their first round pick, plays really hard too. Baylor Shireman is shooting the ball really well. Like they legit have 10 guys out there that are shooting the ball super well and just playing their role really, really well right now. And everybody's starting to figure out where they place on this team. It's like, okay, am I coming off the bench? Okay, I'm gonna come off the bench. I'm gonna provide energy. I'm gonna guard some of the other best players. I'm gonna hit my catch and shoot shots when I need them. I'm gonna try to help rebound. I'm gonna help defend. I'm gonna help get these. Like it feels like everybody is starting to figure out what they do. It feels like early in the year they're just kind of going out there and it's just like, all right, figure it out. Like different line of combinations and different players playing at different times, and they're still trying to figure out the rotation. What is it going to be? Who's in what spot? Now it feels like Joe Mazzulla is finally figured out what lineups work, what players don't work, and now it feels like they're all starting to kind of feed off of it, and they're all starting to be like, okay, this is what I do on this team. This is what I do on this team. This is what I do in these certain situations. Okay, I'm gonna just do that, and it feels like now they're finally coming together. And now, I mean, they look like an actually good team. They got guys like, Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot and Hugo Gonzalez, guys that, probably weren't to be thought of as much. Like, we knew they were probably going to get opportunity, but we didn't know how much they really were going to do. These guys are actually, like, rotational players for this team. And guys that you can trust to go on the court for 15 to 20 minutes and go out and do something. Neemias Queta is showing that he can be somewhat of a starting center in this league. Jaylen Brown is showing that, hey, I can be a consistent number one. I can help winning, even with Jason Tatum not being here. Like they're all shooting the ball super well. Like it's just been super impressive to see what the Celtics have looked like over the last couple of games, over this stretch, and maybe this can be real. Who knows? They have a really hard schedule coming up. Their next four games they play against Milwaukee, Detroit, Miami, Toronto. Those next four games, those are four hard hitting Eastern Conference teams, and we're gonna really see over this stretch. Because if they can do good in this stretch and go like 2-2 or even 3-1 or maybe even win all of them, who knows in this stretch, and even if they do lose, play competitively and show that they can hang with those teams, then like hey, well, yes, maybe not Milwaukee as much as Milwaukee, but Detroit, Miami, and Toronto, if they can like show and that this is who they are for real, then they could be a very interesting team in this East because this year is supposed to be an off year. I was talking about all off season. I was like, I don't expect the Celtics to really do much. I expect them to kind of be competitive in the first half. Then maybe in the second half they kind of shut everything down. Jaylen Brown was coming into the year. I wasn't expecting Jaylen Brown to really play as much, and I was expecting them to kind of go young and eventually at some point kind of shut it down and be like, hey, let's go get a pick this year, so we can, bring Tatum back next year and then we get a pick and then we can retool. They're not, but they're saying, no, we're not doing that. We still are good. And now this brings up the question of if Jason Tatum potentially does come back at some point in March or April and they are still one of the top four seeds in the East, could they make it back? Like what really is their ceiling right now with this team? Are they championship favorites? I wouldn't say so because they just have so much youth on this roster. Like guys like Jordan Walsh, Neemias Queta, Josh Minot, they haven't really played like minutes in playoff series and been in the thick of it of playoffs scenarios. So I wouldn't say they're a favorite, but if Jason Tatum is back and Jaylen Brown is playing like this and Derek White is doing his thing and they have confidence and they have a coach that and players on their team that have been through the ringer, have done this before for a long time, they could be an interesting player. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying they're going to go out and win a championship this year. I'm not saying they're going to go out and beat teams like the Knicks or the Pistons or the Cavs or whatever. But they're an interesting factor. They're a lurker in this Eastern Conference, playoff scenario. But again, that's so far away. We're still just got to December. There's still so much more season left. Who knows what happens? I personally wouldn't really bring Jason Tatum back this season. I don't think that would be a great thing to do. But I don't know. I'm not them. But yeah, it's just you got to give them credit. They've been playing super super well recently. They're really starting to figure out how to play. And again, if things keep continuing like this, they could be a very interesting team when it talks about the state of the Eastern Conference and competing in the Eastern Conference this season. But yeah, it's gonna be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. Really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.